Hello, everyone. I guess I'm live. I'm Anastasia Sharova, the founder of Happy Bellyfish, and I'm welcoming you to our 5th episode of our podcast, Healthy Eating Unbiased and Simplified. So today's topic is actually a concern of many. We are going to talk about aging, hair loss, and chemical imbalances. And if you think that it is just something that's of interest for people who are, let's say, above 50 or 60 years of age, is not exactly true, because I personally know a lot of people who started seeing the effects of aging and particularly experienced hair problems already in their 20s.
I bring every day.
So today we have a very, very special guest who's been working with chemical imbalances in the body his entire life. So I want to introduce our today's guest to you. This is Dr. Ray Nettles. Dr. Ray Nettles became actually famous for developing his unique hair loss treatment, but during the development of this treatment, he also realized that chemical imbalances in body are also responsible for other problems that we face. Fatigue, lack of drive, even problems with weight loss. So it is much more important that we might consider it to be, if you know what chemical imbalance is at all. So let's welcome Dr. Nettles on the screen. So thank you very much, Dr. Nettles, for finding time to coming on the show, to coming live on the show. I know that you're very busy and you just got this extra hour between your patients, so we really, really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. Always nice to share some of the knowledge that we have and the evidence-based medicine from our practice.
Thank you. So you're a creator of several treatment solutions, and you're the creator of a 9-panel test called the biochemical report card, if I'm pronouncing it right. Yes.
You are pronouncing that correctly, and the creator of it's one of the things that evolved out of our treatment center. We started out treating hair loss, and as we dove into the orthomolecular imbalances that were associated with hair loss, we realized that this chemical imbalance affects lots of people, and it's not just a hair loss issue, but it's an issue that affects all of us at some point in time. It's part of, as you mentioned, the aging process.
But you know, there are different people listening to us now and those who will be listening to this episode later, and not everyone actually even knows what chemical imbalance is. What is it? I think a lot of people don't even discover this term, you know, unless they really have a problem. They go to a doctor and then they have a surprise.
So the first thing I think, Anastasia, it would help people understand what a chemical is to back up a little bit and understand what an atom is, right? And the first thing that you're going to realize is that you picked up a rocket ship when you were born, and your rocket ship was put together by your parents. So I'll kind of do for you. Can you see my hands in the screen, or is this still in the screen?
Yes, it's still there. It's still.
Perfect. So let's. I'm going to give you a big overview of our practice so that your viewers can understand not just about hair loss or chemical imbalances, but a little bit more about their body as a temple. Okay. So I always start with Anastasia. I said, mom and dad come together, right? You have two cells that become one cell. And you get part of the DNA from mom, you get part of the DNA from dad. That one cell turns into 100 trillion cells inside your body. But those cells don't have eyes and ears. So how do cells communicate? Cells communicate the same way the plants communicate with the rest of the world, which is through biochemicals. So a chemical is a communication from the cell to another cell. So we have the ability today to look inside our blood and review biomarkers of health and disease by looking at the 4,429 biochemicals in the blood. When we decoded the DNA of the human animal, we found out there were not 1 million genes. There were only 20,000 genes. So there's not an enormous number of chemicals in the body. There's a small number. We now can look at those chemicals and we can measure them and we can find out the balances of those chemicals inside the body. And if they're within the markers, you're going to be healthy. If they're outside of those levels or values, that's where disease starts to affect us. But the chemicals are made of atoms, okay? And how many atoms make up the entire universe? Only 92. Only 92 different atoms make up everything in the universe. 62 of those atoms are inside the human body. We don't even know how they got there, but we do know that they come together to create chemicals. So when mom and dad came together, the DNA is on the inside, and think of DNA as the chef. You guys are dealing with nutrition and food. So your chef is on the inside, and the recipes came from mom and dad, right? But just say you don't like your recipe on the inside, you can change the recipes, right? So DNA is on the inside, and mom and dad gave you the recipes, but who shops for the ingredients to put inside? You and I do. And that's where food becomes our medicine, and medicine becomes our food. For example, if you didn't want to make what your recipe wanted to make, if you didn't bring in the food ingredient, you couldn't make it. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So carbohydrates, right? We talk about carbohydrates. What is a carbohydrate made of? Carbo, carbon, O, oxygen, hydrate, hydrogen. The more we understand those atoms and how they come inside the body to make chemicals, it'll make it a lot easier for us to make better choices, bringing in the right foods. And we want to decrease the carbohydrates, for example. That's just fuel for the engine. But protein and fats are what's used inside the body to make things, right?
I really love the analogy that you give about the recipe. Yeah, and that it's something that your mom and dad gave you, and that we can use different ingredients. So coming back again to that, it means that even a lot of things are like, if you talk about the chemical balance in our body, the setup, even though it's predefined by our genetics, there's still a bunch of things that we can influence and change, right? Like by food, as you gave an example. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, Anastasia. We talk about lifestyle and genetics. Lifestyle, you're the person that walks into the grocery store that does the shopping on the inside. So today, with the biochemical report card, we can look at someone's blood and we can look to see what the hormones look like, and that's part of genetics, right? Genetics will determine the hormonal axis. But as far as the amount of protein and the right amounts of the HDL, the good cholesterol, and the protein, that's all on the individual. So we educate our clients or our patients on how they can improve their body as a temple by choosing different ingredients. And for example, and your viewers may know this because you guys do a lot of discussion about nutrition and food, but protein, for example, a lot of people want to have different diets with different amounts of protein, but it really doesn't matter how much protein you put in, right? What matters is how much will your body absorb, right? The small intestines absorbs protein. Even though you want to put in 100 grams, your intestine cannot absorb more than 6 to 10 grams per hour. So we educate clients on how to pulse the protein into the body to make sure you absorb the protein, right? And if you absorb the protein, it'll get inside. So we teach people how they use food as medicine to get the right amount of nutrients into the body.
Well, what you're saying now about, you just said the phrase that can be a huge surprise for many of our listeners right now, that it doesn't matter how much protein you put in your body, because protein is such a hot topic. And also among our audience, we have the discussion of the future episode always in our group. And from by many people, it was mentioned, please, can we talk more about protein, because there's so much confusing information. But I feel just that element that you mentioned, that how you can absorb the nutrients to fix the temple or to improve your temple is a key. So yes.
Absolutely. And you mentioned it, that there's a lot of information, and I like to speak of it this way, Anastasia. Information is on the walls, knowledge if you seek it, wisdom if you share it. And I hope that I'm going to share some knowledge that becomes wisdom with your viewers. because I get the same question every day in, day out, the same types of questions about nutrition. And it usually comes down to protein, and I'll have big, strong, athletic guys that eat a bunch of protein. But when I look into their blood, they're puzzled to see low protein inside their bloodstream. It's because they don't have the knowledge of how the small intestines works to get the right amount in. And then I'll have a smaller woman with protein as high as you can get, because they have the knowledge of how the body works. But let's think about protein for a second. Protein isn't just to make big muscles and hair, right? Protein is also used inside the body to make antibodies that fight infection. Does that make sense? So you've got to get protein into the body to make enough antibodies to keep you from being sick, right? Neurotransmitters that are made by the brain to communicate with the brain, those are peptides made of protein. A lot of the problems that people have today with fogginess and not being able to think straight and moodiness and irritability, a lot of it comes down to not having enough protein in your body to be able to make the right chemicals to help you fight those infections, to fight those conditions inside your body. So it's not just protein for muscle, it's protein for lots of different things. Collagen, right? Your skin is made of protein, right? You need a lot of protein in your body. I hear a lot of people on a low protein diet. That's never going to help you. You've got to get protein into the body. And the goal in life is to get the protein in and avoid the fat and sugar. And that's the trick. It is very difficult to find protein without fat and sugar, right? So that's what we teach our clients, is just focus on the protein. 20 grams every 2 hours. 20 grams every 2 hours. Doesn't matter if it comes from meat, doesn't matter if it comes from vegetables, wherever you can find the protein, get it into your body. And then run from the sugar, because it's tough to run from sugar. And
this
then
is our favorite topic. Yes.
And then I say, go find the fats. Go find a lot of fat. I want HDL, the good cholesterol. So we talked earlier about those two cells that become one cell. 100 trillion cells becomes me and you. Every single cell is made of a cell wall, and a cell wall is made of fat. You have to eat fat every day or you can't make cells. Does that make sense? Right? Yes. So we tell them, if you're bringing in good fats, what are your cell walls made of, Anastasia? Good fat, right? If you bring in nothing but bad fats, what do you have to make your cell walls with? Bad fats. Which ones are going to function better for you? The ones with the good fat, right? So the goal in life is to get away from the bad stuff and find as much of the good stuff as you can get.
So we are truly made of what we eat, right? I mean, we're made from what we eat. It's our building material, right? What we put to our bodies. That's what you're saying by building ourselves in a healthy way. But let's talk about it also in a context of aging, because I think you also work a lot with this in your practice, right? So there is a certain chemical setup with which we're born, then we kind of modify it with what we eat, with how we live, with our lifestyle, and what's happening with our bodies as we grow older. What's happening with our ability to absorb the nutrients, to absorb the same good fat and healthy proteins.
Yeah. So the first thing I would do is sort of step back and let's get an overview of the species of human animals. That's the first thing I realized, Anastasia. Human is an animal, not a plant, okay? And the plant is someone that we deal with differently than the animals. When we decoded the plants, we found out they had twice as many genes as the human. Plants have been here a lot longer and they're way smarter than us. So I've been following the plants to learn how I can improve the human-animal behavior. And you mentioned it. So in the 1840s, only a couple of hundred years ago, the life expectancy for the masses was in the 40s, age 40s. In the 1960s, only 100 and some odd years later, the life expectancy for the masses became in the 60s. Anastasia, you, me, and the viewers, we're the first group of human animals in 5,000 years that are asking ourselves different questions. We're asking ourselves, what can I do age 30 to 50 to make ages 50 to 80 better? We're the first group that thinks we're all going to make it till 100, right? So we're asking different questions from ourselves. And what we're realizing as a species, right, we are protected until we reproduce. And after we reproduce, Anastasia, we're just like the rest of the animals. We don't really have a lot of use. So we're not built to be here forever, unfortunately. So our genetics determines the hormonal axis inside our bodies. And when we're going through puberty, boy, it really protects us and gives us all the energy, and it pushes us into the right dynamics where everything is optimized. We get the good testosterone, we get the good energy, we get the good everything. And then right after reproduction, the 40s and the 50s, the hormonal axis starts to shift, and we get chemical imbalances, which lead to, as you mentioned, foggy thinking. I don't have any energy. I'm gaining weight. I'm getting too big. My prostate's growing. I'm getting breast cancer. All of those things are built into the human species. We now are having to think, okay, we've got to work double time to stay here by improving our quality of life. In the United States, I'm not sure how it is in Germany, but in the United States, we wait until clients get to about 50 and 60, and then we bring them into the office when they've got a bunch of diseases, and we tell them, you got them all. You got all the diseases we read about in the books.
It's a worldwide problem.
It's a worldwide. So Anastasia, imagine if when we left college, everyone got what I termed the biochemical report card, right? We've got report cards as kids. We should get a body biochemical report card. Every year, I can look inside your body and find out, are you doing a good job with protein, fat, and sugar? If you're messing up the big macronutrients, trust me, you don't need micronutrients and you don't need supplements. You got to go back and get the macronutrients right, which is protein, fat, and sugar. We do that with our patients every year, year in, year out, and every year, Anastasia, they get better and better and better. That's because I believe no one wants to make wrong decisions. No one wants to make bad decisions. I believe people want to make good decisions. They just lack the knowledge. Ignorance is lack of information. They don't know enough to make the right decision. So I appreciate any opportunity I have to be on a show like yours where I can just explain to people, go back to the basics. It's the macronutrients, protein, fat, and sugar, which will help you build your body as a temple, not just for today, but even in the future. I tell people, Anastasia, I can't stop the bus from hitting you, but I can improve your quality of life while you're here until it hits you, okay?
I really love your analogy. It's very easy to apply them for our real life situations. So,
we do our best.
Thank you. So you mentioned now the supplements, and that before, even looking into that, micronutrients, you need to fix your macronutrients, right? And my question is, because it's my personal experience. It's an experience of any people I know, who experienced some health issues. They went to a doctor, and not just in Germany. As I said, it's a worldwide problem. And they will measure that, okay, you don't have enough iron, maybe you don't have enough this vitamin or that vitamin, and they get supplements prescribed, and also sometimes in big quantities without any further testing, without any recommendations concerning their lifestyle and food, and people are happy to accept it. They think there is a magic pill that will fix everything at once. So does it work really? Like, at what stage, when can you fix it without supplements? When do you have to turn to them? Like, what is the situation here?
Yeah, Anastasia, we have very similar problems here in the United States. And as you mentioned, this is a global issue. And it's something that we break down into a series. The first thing you do is look at the blood work to find out what's wrong. And we have patients that come into the office all the time, and they're on 6 or 7 different supplements. And the problem with that is the doctors are sometimes incentivized to carry supplemental types of nutritional supplements to sell in the office, as opposed to doing the right thing, getting the patients to get those supplements from their food. So we first look at the blood work before we put anyone on any kind of product or supplement. And we always go with food first. If the food is not bringing in the right nutrients, there's probably a problem with the intestinal lining being able to absorb the right nutrients. So it's either one, you're not absorbing the nutrients, or number two, you're not making the right choices. But taking a supplement, it just masks that problem. So that's not what we do in the office. In fact, I take you off of all the supplements. I first go find food. God made the food. The food is good for us. So put the food in. If you get it from the food, most of the time that covers everything. But I do understand that with modern medicine, right, if we didn't have something that would kill, say, the H-influenza bacterium, we would be dying today. So we do need things like penicillin, antibiotics. So I'm not opposed to synthetic types of medicines, but I do try my best to get food to be a medicine as much as I can. And then there are times where we do need to concentrate different vitamins and different supplements that we can't get from food. And that's where I created the miracle that helped us with hair loss. It was a molecule that didn't exist in nature. We created it using a fatty acid and an amino acid. And then I put it into your body and it rebalances your system. So today it's an opportunity to take this supplement into your body that rebalances all of your hormones. So it's an opportunity. And it kind of reminds me, Anastasia, when we learned to brush our teeth. Couple of 100 years ago, people didn't brush their teeth, right? And we had to teach people to brush their teeth, right? And if you brush your teeth every day, guess what happens? No cavities. And people say, Anastasia, they say, doctor, well, what if I don't want to take this supplement that rebalances my body? What's going to happen to me? And I say probably the same thing as when you stop brushing your teeth, right? What you realize is we're an animal, but we can share information and knowledge, and we can learn from each other. And it either is a chore or an opportunity. Our patients look at it as an opportunity, as you mentioned, to live longer and to live better. So it's teaching so that people can make actionable changes in their life to improve their life. And there are certain things that a doctor has to get in there and improve, such as the hormonal axis. But most of the time, it's food in combination with modern medicine. But it's not one or the other. It's a combination. I like to use the term synergistic botanicals. So in our modern medicines, we use synergistic botanicals so that they work better together inside the body. And you guys come from a nutrition standpoint on your show, you probably are very familiar with Pottinger's cats. Pottinger's cats is when Dr. Pottinger followed a group of cats, and generation after generation after generation, they continued to deteriorate, eating only processed foods. You cannot eat just processed foods. Well, look at the generation of people we have today. It's processed food after generation of processed food after generation. So we're starting to deteriorate the same as Pottinger's cats, which are animals just like the human animal. So we've got to learn to stay away from too many processed foods.
I really love your example with brushing your teeth, that once you stop doing it, but once you stop taking care of it, done. You don't know how to do it, then you'll get a lot of problems with your teeth, if you have any teeth at all soon. And I often feel that the whole field of simple, basic nutrition of what you put in your body, it's like a completely lacking part of education, and it's not integrated at all, even in the medical system mostly. So you always have to, look for alternative solutions when you start thinking about food and the role it plays in your current well-being. But you also mentioned your hair loss solution, the treatment. And I also want to ask you about, because I know you've done so much research and you have a crazy amount of years of experience with that. So hair is a huge topic, and I think there is not a single person almost on this earth who has never experienced any problems with the hair, be it growth, be it hair loss, or early gray hair. Yes, it's also our listeners who are asking me to ask you this question about the premature graying hair. So the question is it something that we can prevent by our lifestyle and by our food? Is it mostly kind of genetically predefined, so we have actually very little impact that we can make on our hair and what happens to it after a certain age without going to like special customized treatments? So what's the deal with the hair?
So the first thing I like to think about when I think about hair, Anastasia, is let's call it hair health first, okay? There is the health of hair, and lifestyle has a lot to do with the health of hair, and genetics have a lot to do with the health of hair. You need both, okay, for healthy hair. But genetics is something that will lead to hair loss or miniaturization over time. And that is going to require a customized, individualized prescription from an orthomolecular physician like myself. The problem is there's only one in the United States, and my goal is to train as many as possible. It starts with identifying and interpreting the biochemical report card. And as you alluded to, a lot of doctors don't go to school for nutrition. My undergraduate and my medical school had the most nutrition out of any school in the United States. But that still wasn't enough. I spent 10 years learning about nutrition, mostly from Dr. Linus Pauling. And I'm sure that your viewers know a little bit about Dr. Linus Pauling. Dr. Linus Pauling was the expert that studied vitamin C, and then he taught us how important vitamin C was, not just to make us feel good and prevent a disease like scurvy, but vitamin C, he said, we're the only animal that doesn't make vitamin C. We're the only animal that has heart disease. Vitamin C helps us build collagen that wraps around the blood vessels that protects us from heart disease. So he's the one that I kind of followed when I got into the micronutrients. But getting back to hair loss, so let's start with hair health. There's a big part of genetics, and then there's a big part of lifestyle. They go hand in hand. You need both. Are you going to need to probably see a doctor? The answer is yes. Are you also going to need someone that can help you with nutrition and your lifestyle? The answer is yes. Our holistic approach, Anastasia, that has successfully treated 100% of clients from 6 continents that have come to my office, employs a holistic approach. We use nutrition, we use exercise, we use meditation, and we use modern medicine. I use everything in my disposal to do what I need to do based on your individual biochemical report card. Not everybody needs everything because not everybody's making that many mistakes. Not everybody got the wrong enzymes in their genetics. But before I look into the blood work, how could I ever diagnose someone and treat them? I couldn't, and I shouldn't. So I always make the right diagnosis before I go to the treatment. And we've been right 100% of time because we first get a diagnosis. Today, a lot of doctors are treating patients with what they see instead of what they look at in the blood work. So the blood work is as important as what I look at with the digital microscope on the scalp. They go hand in hand. I need both.
I see. So I understand correctly, there is never one size fits all, right? Like when it comes to such things like your personal chemical imbalance, it's something personal. Yeah, you can't give the same basic recommendation for everyone, or others some kind of rules of thumb, some things that you can recommend, some particular foods to eat, some certain lifestyle routine to follow that you think would help people to cope with premature hair loss and aging in general.
Well, you mentioned a lot there, and I do my best, Anastasia, not to give my opinion, and I appreciate you asking for it. But I explain to people, Anastasia, an opinion is the lowest form of self-expression, especially in a world today with access to so much knowledge. So what I will share with you is knowledge that I've used in my clinic, and I've seen it improve the life of others. So something that your viewers, no matter where they are and they don't have access to me, one thing they can do, 1 hour every single day, I want them to exercise. 1 hour every day, I want them to exercise. And you know what they tell me, Anastasia? They say, doctor, sometimes I'm so busy, I don't have a chance to exercise. I said, that's not how the world works, right? The world works differently. You get up and you put in 1 hour of exercise. And if you have leftover time, you get in to do the other stuff that the other animals want us to do. But we have a purpose in life, and it's not just to keep busy and working, right? So 1 hour every day, I want everybody to exercise. That will make your whole life better, and it will make your hair healthier. And then I want you 1 hour every day to get rid of stress. I want you to meditate. I want you to do something mindful. I want you to do yoga, whatever it is, but I want an hour every day. I want you to do that, okay? So those are things. So I want you to exercise 1 hour every day. I want you to meditate 1 hour every day. Every 2 hours, I want you to put protein into that rocket ship that you got, because when mom and dad came together and put together your rocket ship, it didn't come with an instruction manual, did it? It's got recipes with ingredients that you put in, but there's no instruction manual. So I know that you've got to put protein in every couple of hours. And then I think you should learn something new every day. Put in an hour into learning something. If you do those couple of things, what you'll realize is, boy, it's going to be the day just getting over is a day, right? It's just busy. So I want you to stay doing something that improves your life. Most people get up and they drink coffee and they go straight into work, right? They're ready to work for something, but they're not really here taking care of themselves. So I'd rather them think about themselves. And Anastasia, I tell them the day comes, and when it comes, it's already happened. So you get ready for the day the night before. If you're not ready for the day the night before, you're not ready for the day, okay? Because you have to be ready for that, what I call bookend protein. First thing in the morning, find protein. Right before you go to sleep, find protein. So there's enough chores for us to do in a day outside of all the other things that the world wants us to do.
Well, what you're saying, enough, and it sounds like something that all we know, or we've heard maybe even from our parents at some point, but somehow it's really easy to do it on a daily basis, right? Other priorities overtake, and then we bear the consequences.
That's how it
then
works.
We run to doctors.
Anastasia, people say to me, they say, doctor, they say bad habits are hard to break. I went and got a master's in human behavior because I wanted to figure out why. And I found out they're right, Anastasia. Bad habits are hard to break. And my clients usually smile when I tell them that. And then I said, but I learned something else. They said, what'd you learn, doctor? I said, I learned that good habits also hard to break. What you realize is a habit is what you do. The goal in life is to get into so many good habits, you run out of time for the bad habits, right? So I teach people to get into good habits, but those good habits are things that we decide in the office to do together. And as you mentioned, getting the nutrition, getting that right, getting your exercise right, getting your spiritual mindfulness. Everything is a big part of our journey here, right? So I teach people there's a bigger picture for you, not just here to work, but there's a better one. You can take care of your temple. You're given a body for 100 years, then you turn it back in. So it's what you do with your gift is most important.
You have a truly unique profile, professional, and also unique approach, I should say, comparing to many other doctors out there. I really love it. I really love the importance that you give to our stress management, for example, because it's also a very overlooked factor. And I just wish that more people who face any challenges, health changes in life, meet more doctors like you, who are eager to and who are able to offer them a solution that addresses different spheres of life, and who really explain that there are many pieces of the same puzzle, and that just one magic pill can't solve it all.
You're right, Anastasia. We've got the greatest disparity in height and weight in recorded history. For us to think that one dose of one medicine is right for every single person is the old way of looking at it. So the can of peas, for example, if you wanted more peas, you would just open another can. Medicine doesn't work that way. When we first started with the science that we had to develop the medical world that we have now, we didn't have some of the science in place. We didn't have X-ray crystallography, for example. Without X-ray crystallography, you can't see the three-dimensional shapes of the chemicals inside our body. Well, if you can't see the three-dimensional shapes of the chemicals, how could you make a substance that's three-dimensionally shaped to go inside the body? So we have a lot more knowledge today. So when people ask me sometimes, well, doctor, I'm afraid of taking something, I'm worried about side effects. There's no such thing as side effects, right? I explain to people, you think a man can make a lock that has one key and only that key can get there, but you don't think God can do it? Trust me, your body is a rocket ship. We barely know a little bit about it. But for me to get something in your body to do one thing, I jump up and down and say thank you for it to do that one thing. To think it's going to leave your body and go do something else, the world doesn't work like that. So we really educate people. And I think that's the one thing that's been missing is the doctor educating the patient on what's going on so they can make a better decision with knowledge. But we don't direct the traffic. We give the information and knowledge, and we let the clients make their decision.
Yeah, I guess the key is also that very often the clients, the patients, they don't really want to do the work, right? You have to put the effort in changing your habits, and no doctor can really do it for you. For example, you mentioned the good habits, but how about the bad habits? There is a very known, let's say, argument given by people who, for example, smokers. They give examples of people who live 100 years and they still enjoy the cigarette or two a day. So what's this connection between actually the bad habits that we all know that they're not good for you, and how is it possible that some people are still able to kind of live healthy or semi-healthy lives and long lives, and the others collapse before finishing half of it?
So I don't understand everything about the human body. I wished I did, but God made us. And if I made us, I would have made us way differently. I know that. Anastasia, today, if we get hungry, right, we can put food in and the hunger goes away. If I built a human animal, when they got a headache, I would make them read a book to make the headache go away, and I would have the smartest group of human animals ever. So I don't have the chance to build them or create them, or I would have built them differently. Some of them live longer, some of them don't live as long, some of them have better habits than others. But to the point that you mentioned, the person doing something small, even a bad habit, smoking 2 cigarettes a day, over time, that is still what I would consider in moderation. That's the same person that drinks a little wine with every meal. That little stuff usually doesn't cause the problems. It's the person that drinks too much and smokes too much and says, I do the same as Susie. You're not the same as Susie, because you don't have the same habits, but everybody has the same amount of time. 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. is the same everywhere in the world. If you don't use that time wisely, Anastasia, the idle hands are the devil's workshop. So get busy doing good stuff and you'll run out of time for the bad stuff. And that's my focus in the office, is to get these animals out into the world, working for the people, doing something good where they don't have time to think of the bad habits. If you put them at home, they'll think of bad habits. But at home, I want the 1 hour of exercise. I want the 1 hour of meditation. I want the 1 hour of learning something new. I give them a book when they start the program. So we hold them accountable for you doing your part. And if you come back in at the end of the year, Anastasia, I'm going to look at your report card again. If you're not growing hair as fast as I want, am I going to blame me, or might I blame you, right? I might blame you.
That's
and if
tough.
yeah, I'm pretty tough in here. Yeah. And it makes sense, right? So your protein level is very important. Hair, for example, grows every second, every minute of every hour of every day. If you don't have enough protein in your body during that period of time of growing hair, it's going to be thinner than when you have a lot of protein. Does that make sense? That's how the body works.
Guys, we are coming a little bit to the end of our time because Dr. Nettles has a lot of things to do today, and his patients are waiting for them. So just the last minutes, I'm going to give you the chance to ask questions if you want. I have infinite number of questions to Dr. Nettles, but if you want to ask something about hair, about aging, about chemical balance, imbalance, anything about his practice and his personal approach, do it now. If you're watching this video as a replay, then start your comment with the word replay and we'll still get your question answered. I think for me, Dr. Nettles, this whole discussion actually came out a little bit as a surprise, because I was thinking that we probably would be discussing a lot of technical issues and super remedies, maybe some, I don't know, special supplements, or you'll use a lot of words that I can't even pronounce. And it took me by surprise that you talk about very simple things, in fact, which are connected to hair growth. And nobody would think that such things like meditation every day has anything to do with the amount and the thickness and maybe even the color of the hair on your head. It's really non-obvious for most people, even though it's that simple.
Well, as you mentioned, I mentioned earlier, information is on all the walls. Knowledge, if you seek it, wisdom, if you share it. I could have used big words on your show, and I could have confused a lot of people, and they would have thought that I'm very smart, and that will not help anyone, right? What I realized over time, Anastasia, I found out that it's easy to make something sound difficult and confuse people. What's very difficult is making something easy to understand. And that's why I give everybody that walks in the office, Anastasia, 100% money back guarantee, because I know what I'm doing and I'll prove it to you. And I want them to know I have to earn your trust in the office. So I do my best to earn your trust. And I use very common words and I use very easy to understand analogies, because I need you to understand how important it is. And then that you have the ability. I empower people to go make change. Otherwise, they don't think they've got the power to do it. So I teach them you have the power. You just don't have the knowledge, but I'll give you that.
Well, it is empowering, and in a way, maybe at the same time, a little bit disappointing to know that you're the only person who is responsible for not just the amount of the hair on your head, but also for the way you age.
I imagine doctors around the world are going to be doing this. Dr. Linus Pauling, just 50 years ago, he implored people to please become orthomolecular physicians. There's not a lot of us out there because it's kind of complicated understanding the biochemistry of the blood. But I want you to think about something. If you were to close your eyes and think about who you are as a person, those cells are 99.9% empty space. So you really are a figment of your imagination of who you want to be while you're here on Earth. You have the rocket ship that you can't change for anybody else's, but you have the opportunity to move it from place to place, and you have present moment to think of any thought that you want. Nobody can control your thought, and nobody can make you go anywhere. So you have a lot of control and a lot of power while you're here. So I let you know that you have that power, that God invested in you. I didn't do it. God made you. But I teach you that you have power as far as the choices that you make, and it is up to you. And I want you to have a great journey. I want you to experience it. I want you to have a great time. But Picasso said it best. He said, meaning in life, go find your gifts. Everybody got them. Purpose in life, give them away. They're not for you. And that's what we teach our people here. Man makes jobs, but God will give you a purpose. We have a purpose while we're here. We went into Egypt. We sent scientists over there, and they came back and said, stone tools can't build these pyramids. They were built, they could have been built 100,000 years ago. Technology we don't even have today. We've been here spinning around this earth for hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years, as the same human animal today. This is the first time where we've actually gotten together to create something and share something with each other. So I'm just glad to be a part of this human fabric.
And thank you a lot for that. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and your experience. And, you know, this is also what we always feel at Happy Bellyfish. This is what also our mission, to share as much as we can about what we know and to bring amazing guests to you, like Dr. Ray Nettles, so that maybe you can look from a different angle at things that you thought you knew everything about, or at solutions, and see that you really have a lot of power over the way you feel and over the way you live. So we have Madero saying hello. Hello, Madero. If you guys are watching a replay, please leave your comments, leave your questions, put the replay in front of your comments, and we'll get them answered. I'm going to thank now Dr. Nettles for joining us, and I'm going to thank you for watching this. I hope you will enjoy. And thank you, Doctor, for being such an amazing speaker and for giving me personally a lot of food for thought, and I'm sure giving a lot of food for thought to our audience. We will later share also the link to the practice and to the work you do, and maybe there's still, if the person is watching it, then somebody will find help also more clear.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me on, and I hope to be a future guest again when you need me, okay?
Thank you very much. We appreciate your presence at university. Bye-bye.
I hope you enjoyed this video. Now, head over to happybellyfish.com and check out some amazing online programs and cooking classes that we are offering together with food experts from all around the world. Eat healthy, keep your belly and taste buds happy.